All right, so this is a video to actually try to clear up and explain what autoimmune is, what it does, what's going on in the body when it's happening, what causes it that we know of, and what you can do about it most importantly. So first, let's start with the word autoimmune. What does that mean? So auto comes from the Greek word and ultimately means self. And immune is your immune system, which is essentially the whole system of different white blood cells, etc., in your system that are supposed to protect, safeguard you from invaders, bad bacteria, viruses, and any sort of invader into your system. They go at it, attack it, break it down, and get rid of it to defend your body from outside attackers or things in it that should not be in there or that will cause harm to it. So what's happening in autoimmune, unfortunately, is the body is misidentifying and can't differentiate between self cells and things in your body that should be there and belong there and are part of you, and the bad guys. So if you can liken it maybe to, some bad guy dresses up as a fellow army comrade and walks in and the immune system spots it and figures out this guy's a bad guy, starts attacking it, but then accidentally starts taking out everyone else too because it can no longer differentiate. In a sort of analogy, that's kind of what's happening. The immune system is getting confused. It's seeing inflammation, it's seeing invaders, but it's also now taking it out on the wrong guy, if you know what I mean. So what we don't know exactly, like if you look at this up and look deep into it, it isn't absolutely positive what is going on that your immune system gets confused. Some of it can actually be related to genes, like genetic disposition toward it. But predominantly what we do know and what has been found out or confirmed, or there's definitely high inclination toward is toxins and things you are exposing your system to, primarily in the gut, not always in the gut. It can also be caused by like certain bacteria and viruses, specifically like that would cause Lyme disease and stuff. It can be viral. It can also be related to heavy toxins or exposure to heavy toxins and chemicals that can cause or predispose you to an autoimmune. But as 70% of your immune system, it begins in the gut. A lot of it points to gut and bad eating habits, essentially. Your gut, just so you understand how the body works, your gut is basically, there's a barrier down there in your small intestine. So when you eat, what happens is it goes down into your stomach acid breaks down, it does a lot of breaking down of that food, but then it goes into the small intestine. And the small intestine is actually where most of your nutrients get absorbed and go into the bloodstream. But in order for that to happen, they have to have very tight junctions. And there's a mucosal layer as well. So between the mucosal layer and the tight junctions, it only lets certain things in, like for example, amino acids and stuff, but keeps things that should not be in there out. And what can happen when you eat like highly processed foods, emulsifiers, eat a lot of sugar, alcohol, lectin heavy foods, which would be nightshade vegetables, beans, and things with lots of lectins in it. Nightshade vegetables, by the way, tomatoes, potatoes, high oxalate foods, which would be spinach, almonds, etc. Or you're doing a lot of chemicals or fast foods, rapeseed oils, vegetable oils, fried foods, highly processed foods. All of these things, what they do is they can compromise and break down the mucosal barrier. B, they can cause dysbiosis. So you have a whole community down there, and you have good guys and you have some bad guys, but the good guys generally keep the bad guys in check, and these guys work as a whole community to kind of support and help your digestion and keep you healthy. And when you eat bad foods, you start to kill off and deny food and nutrients to the good guys, and you start feeding the bad guys mostly. And this can cause an out of balanceness. And some of those good guys, a lot of them have a responsibility towards keeping your mucosal layer and keeping that whole area healthy. So you kill them off, you got a problem. Then you wear down your mucosal layer, you got more of a problem. There's less defense between your stomach and your intestine and your bloodstream. And just to put this in perspective, and then you still have the junction, by the way, that junction is only one cell thick. So the barrier between whatever you're putting in your stomach and your bloodstream is one cell thick. You can imagine that's not a lot. So you wear through the mucus, and now you've caused a junction break or gap in that junction. So bigger particles and things that should not be getting in there are now getting in there. One thing that heavily does this to the stomach is bread and gluten, because gluten actually promotes an increase in zonulin, which is a natural enzyme in your body, and that tends to open up those junctions more as well. So you have one cell thick layer of protection between what you're eating and what you're putting in your body and what actually belongs in your bloodstream. And now you're totally wearing that down. So then what's supposed to get into your bloodstream through that small intestine, what actually is supposed to get through is amino acids and peptides. So when you eat protein, for example, and it goes into your stomach and it starts breaking down, once it hits your small intestine actually works further to break it down from the protein to peptides and amino acids. And just to give you sort of an example or a concept of this, so you can liken the one cell thickness of like if you were to say one cell thick of your layer between your stomach and your bloodstream, that one cell is approximately the size, as an analogy, of a soccer field. And the protein is approximately the size of a soccer ball. Okay. And what's supposed to go through that lining is actually an amino acid or peptide. And a peptide is probably the size of a pea, or sorry, the size of a marble, approximately. And the amino acid is around the size of a pea. I mean, this is just to give you a conceptual, a concept of what we're dealing with. So soccer field is the cell, and protein is a soccer ball. And pea or marble, depending on if it's a peptide or amino acid, is what is actually supposed to go through. So those junctions have gotten opened up enough to let a soccer ball through instead of a pea or marble, if that helps in terms of a concept of size here. Obviously, we're talking really, really small, but that's what's happening. So now you get these foreign particles entering your bloodstream. And what happens is your immune system is always on patrol throughout your system. So suddenly it's got this protein in there, and it's like, what are you doing here? So it starts attacking. This causes inflammation. And what we understand can also happen is some of those proteins look similar to your body proteins. So normally your immune system sees these little amino acids and these peptides, and now suddenly he's seeing this big protein, and he knows the protein doesn't belong there. I mean, why is he wandering through the halls, right? So he starts attacking it. But then he gets like the immune system gets a little confused and starts just attacking other proteins in your body that like look similar to it. So it starts this whole disaster, if you will, of immune attack. Okay, so that is one theory or concept of what is going on when we talk about autoimmune, and probably one of the more sensible ones that I've read and studied up on, where your system just gets confused, but it starts with something that's an understandable confusion, like something that should not have been there was there, but now it can't differentiate anymore, because obviously your immune system also is trained and it's supposed to remember the bad guy, so that from now on, when it sees the bad guy, it knows to kill him. But if that bad guy looks a little bit too similar to our own bodies, we have a problem. So it is definitely a fault in the system, but that is essentially what we are talking about and what's going on. So again, everybody is different. So what's happening with you or what's happening with someone else might not be like the autoimmune attack can show up in various ways there's many ways: rheumatoid arthritis, nerve damage, autoimmune Hashimoto's, heart autoimmune, blood autoimmune. It can attack your pancreas. I mean, there's many different ways this can manifest. Why it affects people differently is also dependent upon their genes. It could be dependent on many factors as well. And again, not everything is known about this, obviously, or we would probably have a full cure for it at this point. But what we do know is that there's many things you can do to calm down that nervous system. And a lot of the handlings surround changing your diet, removing anything in your diet or around you that could be exposing you to toxins. You don't want to just suppress the immune system, but what you can do to help the immune system stop being riled up so much is get rid of things that are constantly aggravating the body. Sugar, alcohol, smoking, perfumes, any kind of cosmetics, scented candles, plastics or BPA or any kind of endocrine disruptors you're putting on your body, aluminum in your deodorants, facial, makeup, whatever. Just you would be amazed if you really look at everything you're putting on your skin or exposing yourself to, how much toxicness is actually in your environment. And that's not even considering or taking into account air quality and what have you, right? So the body is being bombarded constantly. And also, on top of it, bad eating habits. And if you start reading the ingredients of a lot of things that you're eating, you will also be amazed. Emulsifiers is a big thing, even when you're trying to eat healthy. So is rapeseed and sunflower oil, even in an organic, all natural, common in there. But those things cause inflammation. Emulsifiers cause dysbiosis, and they contribute directly to leaky gut. And so do rapeseed oils. They get very oxidized. They're very not healthy oils, and very cardiovascular, not healthy as well. So you essentially need to really do a full, like top to bottom look at what you're eating, what you're exposed to, what you're doing in your daily hygiene routines, and anything you're doing in your house, any chemicals you're using to clean with, like across the boards, look at what you're cooking with. If you're cooking with Teflon and these nasty materials that can get into your food and into your system, etc. Like you got to look at everything, not just diet. But you definitely have to look at diet because that's where most of the body's getting hit the most is obviously with what you're eating, and just like get that stuff out of there. Again, grains is a big start. Gluten, grains, anything like that. That is he's grains and gluten are like the one of the biggest contributors to that, and fast foods, and highly processed foods, and those toxic oils, vegetable oils, sunflower oils, race. Those are the one of the biggest contributors to inflammation and gut problems. Like by far, they're right up there. But then even down from that, there are certain foods that are very heavy in oxalates, what's called oxalates, and those cause kidney stones and they suck your calcium and they can cause inflammation too. And that would be spinach is a big offender of that. There's a large amount in spinach, a large amount in rhubarb, a large amount of almonds. So if you're doing a lot of this, you could be inflaming and causing damage. Lectins, like I mentioned. So again, it doesn't mean you can never eat an almond or never eat spinach again, but unless you're sensitive. Some people are actually very sensitive to oxalates, but you kind of want to reduce them dramatically. Same with lectins. It's like it doesn't mean you can never eat a tomato again, but you do need to keep it on the low. They're not things you want to eat a lot of. And also how you cook. So if you're frying something in oil, even healthy oil, but just the frying of it can actually make it less healthy than just cooking it, if you know what I'm saying. And especially it's very unhealthy cooking it in vegetable oils, etc. Um, Sugar is a big one. Like sugar, I would just say if you have autoimmune, get sugar out of your diet. If you have autoimmune, get grains out of your diet. And I mean completely, and I mean oats, corn, wheat, any kind of grain, just get it out of your diet. Do not do alcohol or highly limit it. Look, I mean, you ultimately can do whatever you want, but if you want to handle it and if you really want to take care of your body and if you really want to be healthy, you are going to have to sacrifice some things. Maybe it's not fair, maybe it's not fun, maybe it's inconvenient, but from experience, nothing tastes better than feeling healthy and feeling good. Like nothing. When your health starts going, you really realize that cupcake is not better and not worth the pain and the suffering. It's just not worth it. And you will have your own conclusion, and you will find for yourself the things that trigger it the most and don't. But get these things, sugar and emulsifiers and processed foods and glutens and grains out of your diet, lectins out of your diet, processed foods out of your diet. I highly recommend carnivore initially, like go carnivore. And by carnivore, I mean only eating meats. I recommend red meat more than just chicken, but red meat and salmons or sardines or fish, and watch it on salmons because you don't want farmed. You want grass-fed beef, and you want caught, fresh caught salmon as much as possible, because unfortunately not grass-fed or farmed fish can have, they're fed corn and soy and antibiotic, like there's other stuff that they put. So you're basically trying to be healthy, but you're still getting antibiotics and other things, which antibiotics are a big factor in ruining your stomach too. You're getting those things via whatever the animal ate, and that's a problem. So I definitely recommend ribeyes, steaks, ground meats. I recommend lamb if you can tolerate or like lamb. They're very healthy. Some of the most nutrient dense foods you can eat. I definitely recommend salmon, sardines, mackerel. These high omega-3 fish are very good. And yes, you can do chicken and you can do fish. I definitely recommend eggs. I don't recommend doing a lot of dairy. That's the other thing. Especially if you're autoimmune. So carnivore, dairy is actually technically fine for carnivore, but dairy tends to be inflammatory for everyone, not just people who have problems with it. We're not actually made to drink breast milk for the rest of our lives. Okay. It's actually, we're not supposed to drink that. Okay. So at a certain point, or to a certain degree, if you're doing a lot of it, it can spike even for people who have no problems, apparently, it can throw your estrogen balance out. Milk has a carbohydrate called lactose, which is basically a sugar. So you actually are getting a sugar spike every time you drink it, even though you don't necessarily notice it, maybe. If you're gonna do dairy and you don't have autoimmune, you can do cheese and you can do kefir. Those are much better because they're fermented and they're less inclined to cause inflammation or problems. But for autoimmune specifically, I would say stay away from it. Get off dairy completely in all forms, including butter, just initially, because we need to take away anything and everything that could possibly be inflaming you, and then we can try to reintroduce some things. So like go carnivore for a month, or definitely a month at least, and just clean up and let your body heal and let it calm down. Then we can reintroduce things gradually, and you will notice right away if something is not going with your system or not. Like you will notice that you won't feel right, you won't feel off, you'll get some sort of reaction. Sometimes they can be severe, sometimes they can be minor, but you will notice when something is not sitting well with your system. When you're just bombarding your system all day long with junk, you don't know what foods are causing what problems. You just know you feel like crap or you're having an autoimmune attack. So that's why I really recommend carnivore. It's the ultimate elimination diet, and it's a very healthy diet in terms of nutrition dense foods. I don't recommend necessarily going forever as a carnivore. And the reason I don't is because you do need to some degree support your microbiome. That's my personal thing on it. And carnivore, there's a lot of people who swear by carnivore, they're doing great, and they're like, I don't need anything else, and that's fine. I'm not going to get in the middle of that argument. But from my perspective and from my experience, you have to also support your microbiome and your motility and regular bowel movements and that kind of thing. And I don't mean doing some really wacky high fiber diet either. I mean in moderation, you just need a balance. Okay, so there are other things for autoimmune that I would recommend, including fasting. Now, depending on your age, depending on your health, depending on your situation, you may not be able to like run out the gate and do a 7-day fast. And I understand that, and I wouldn't even recommend it, but we do need to get you to a point of fasting. And I would personally want to do an individual program for every person. I don't want to do a global video on fasting and the certain, probiotic recommendations and everything, because there isn't a one size fits all. but I definitely recommend fasting. 72-hour fasting, 24 hours if you're new to all this, 24 hours, and do gradually. So like the first day you want to start fasting, go slow and just restrict your window eating. So eat within an 8-hour period and don't eat outside of that. When you get comfortable with that, good. Do 24 hours. If you get comfortable with that, good. Like a week or later or whatever, do a 48-hour fast. Get it up to 72. Unless you are dealing with a lot of weight, you don't necessarily need to go over 72. When you actually hit 72, you actually trigger an immune reset the minute you eat, especially if you eat good proteins and stuff. And the way you break your fast, by the way, is also very important. I'm going to do a whole video on this because I can't, this video will be extremely long if I try to cover everything, but you do reset in a way your immune system when you fast for 72 hours. But even a 24-hour fast and a 48-hour fast is very beneficial to chilling out the immune system, healing the stomach, and just letting your body process things out and just deal with some things. Because when you're constantly eating, you're like the body, all its energy and all its focus is on handling that food. You don't give it a break for maintenance or doing cleanup or anything else. So it's very healthy to fast. Um, and especially if you don't do like crazy extreme fast, and especially if you break the fast correctly. And intermittent eating is a very healthy too. So eating within a restricted window because it lets your body calm down and handle other things instead of constantly dealing with your food. You know what I mean? And trying to like, you have no idea how much work is going on when you eat, between maintaining your blood sugar, handling your electrolytes, and like just trying to like deal and break down that food. It's a lot of work. So if you give it a break, it can concentrate on cleanup and repair and other things as well. I highly recommend fasting. It's that and changing my diet were some of the most effective things I did to turn my health around. And also probiotics. And again, probiotics, prebiotics, fermented foods after the initial carnivore, if you will. So yeah, I will do more videos on this to break this down further because again, this video could be very long and I don't want to get too into the woods on those things. And they really require their own videos. But I hope that this has given you a real good understanding of autoimmune and what we're talking about and what could be the cause or behind it. And I hope you have a lot more understanding. If you have any questions or anything I didn't cover, please comment below. If anything I said is inaccurate or you want to clarify or you have more data, please share. I mean, the point of my videos is not to preach to you or whatever. I, just like you, am learning all the time and I want to share the information that I've learned and my experience. And I would love to have your feedback too, because I feel that ultimately knowledge is empowering. And when you know what's going on and when you understand your body and when you understand that all we need to do is restore balance and give it what it needs, your body will heal itself. And that's the most important thing as a naturopath, as a nutritional coach. That is the most important thing to me, is that I help you to get your body back in balance and we help together, we give it the nutrients and the things it needs to fix itself, because it really can do magic in terms of healing itself if you remove the things that are preventing that and you give it the nutrients and the things that it needs to do that. Okay, thank you.